Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Great Lakes Perspective. So, as you all know, I held a community poll asking you guys what you wanted to see be the next video, and so a majority of you voted for top primary targets. So, I will cover the top 10 primary races of 2026. These are no particular order, but these are probably the most contested uh, and potentially impactful primary races of the cycle. So, without further ado, let's get into the house races. So, I have a nifty little map that I made. Um, Not particularly detailed, but it shows you a little teaser of all the races we're going to get into. So, what the first one we're going to go over is in Utah. So, if you remember, a couple months ago, um, a court judge in Utah ruled that the map was gerrymandered, and because of that, it had to be redrawn. And so they redrew it to make a basically a safe Democratic district in Salt Lake City. And so that by that packed two Republicans into the same district. Now I have a feeling Moore will probably switch over to the second district over here. I don't really think he has much of a shot running in the new first district, but as you can see here, there is a redistricting primary between Representatives Mike Kennedy and Celeste Malloy. Now, if you're not familiar, Malloy became a congresswoman after a representative resigned in 2022, I believe. Yeah, Chris Stewart resigned in 23 actually. There was a special election for his seat. And then in 2024, while running for a full term in office, um, she nearly lost the primary. You might be wondering why. Why did she almost barely lose the primary? Like, why did she almost lose to Colby Jenkins? Well, turns out Malloy is a rhino. She has a very weak voting record, even for a Utah Republican, which is why she almost got primaried out. Now she is running against another incumbent representative in Mike Kennedy. Kennedy, if you remember, back in 2018, ran for Senate um, against Mitt Romney, and as a matter of fact, he won the convention vote and lost the primary by a sizable margin, but he did perform respectably. He got in when the former representative John Curtis ran for Senate to replace Mitt Romney. Um, he's been a decent representative, though he's had some odd votes in the recent past. But um, this is one of the few redistricting primaries of the cycle based on mid-decade redistricting, and especially between two incumbents of the same party. This should be a top race to see. Malloy is one of the bottom tier representatives, and this should be a major improvement, even if we do get it wind up with a Democrat in this district overall. But anyways, onto the next race. I'll save Texas for last, but Kentucky's fourth. So in Kentucky, Republican Representative Thomas Massie has gotten himself into a lot of hot water with President Donald Trump, especially with his voting record and a lot of his rhetoric. He's been very hostile to Trump. And so, because of that, Ed Galrian, farmer candidate for Kentucky's 7th in 2024, has announced that he's running against Thomas Massie. he has Trump's endorsement, even though Massey has a decent amount of endorsements from mostly like state level legislatures, some representatives, so some you'd kind of expect, and Rand Paul. Uh, Galbraith has apparently he's outraised Thomas Massey, but um, if you just look at the polling so far, and this is from a year ago, and this is from when it was Nikki Lee Effington, who was at the time running against Massey when she was still in the race, and the fact she's even beating out Massey. Trump endorsed Republican wins outright against Massey. Um, Galreen, I'm curious to see how polling shows it, but he will more than likely be um, coming out ahead, and this will be one of the top primary races to look into. And more likely than not, Massey will walk away the loser in this cycle. And so that brings us to Texas, two important races. Texas, let's start with Texas second district, where you have incumbent Representative Dan Crenshaw, also known as Eye Patch McCain, running for another term. He is being challenged by Steve Toth, a state representative from the 15th district, and who um, a candidate for the 8th district in 2016. So you might be wondering, Crenshaw is bad, but he's an incumbent. He hasn't really attracted the ire of Donald Trump. Well, 2024, you look at this district, Crenshaw only won 59.5% of the vote against Jamison Ellis, a candidate who only raised 28,000 and spent 23,000. So he won by 19 points against practically a no-name candidate, no endorsements, marketing executive, and a perennial candidate too. And he also ran in 2022. And if we look here, um, yeah, this is more what you'd expect from a type of primary like that. So the fact he underperformed this much against a no-name um, shows that he's very vulnerable, and that people in this district will probably want an actually decent representative. And you're seeing here, he's only getting 47% of the vote in a primary poll. Now, keep in mind this is from October, but if he's already polling to advance to a runoff, that's a very good sign for Toth. Now, the only worrying thing is the money raised and spent so far, but even still, he's raised way more than Ellis did. Because he compare it like 12, 1.2 million to 300,000 versus 2.3 million to 28,000. So he is not raising as much as he needs to raise, and Toth is catching or closing the gap enough so that I could very well see this race being very interesting, very competitive, and while unfortunately I don't think Crenshaw loses, I think he'll definitely walk away um, from a very close primary battle. And so another primary race that's going to be very close, or hopefully close, is in the 23rd district between Tony Gonzalez and Brandon Herrera. Gonzalez, as you all remember, in 2024 ran against Herrera, or Herrera ran against him. Herrera got a decent amount of endorsements, mostly from Freedom Caucus members. Rittenhouse, um, and of course Sid Miller, the agriculture commissioner, and he advanced to the runoff. He got the endorsement of most of the people in the or the two of the other people running against Gonzalez, and in the runoff he only lost by 500 votes, and so he's running against him again. Gonzalez has some pretty bad scandals against him, especially involving a staffer. I won't get into it, but it's very nasty stuff. And despite getting Trump's endorsement, it seems more so that people are irate with Trump endorsing him than anything else, considering the stuff that Gonzalez has been revealed to have, or more so the the scandal itself. More, but scroll down here. He's raised 50, yeah, 1.5 million to Herrera's 3.7 million in 2024. Herrera raised 1.2 million to Gonzalez's 3.7 million. So it would appear here that um, neither candidate is really raising as much as they probably need to win. The good thing for Herrera is that he can self-fund a lot more than Gonzalez. And you're seeing here too in polling, Herrera is only down by 5, and this is just a head-to-head poll between the two. So very good sign for him. Um, Also, he hasn't really spent as much in this race. Gonzalez has already spent $500,000, and yeah, from as of September 30th, and he walked away only leading him by 5 points. So very good start for Herrera, and he could very well walk away with this. And this is probably the top primary race outside of Kentucky. So let's bow out of the House races and look at um, the Senate. So in the Senate, there's 3 races to watch out for. So the first one is going to be Kentucky, and here we have 3 major candidates: Andy Barr, Daniel Cameron, and Nate Morris. Andy Barr, very establishment rhino-y guy, has endorsement of people like Zinke, Jackson, and McCall. Um, Rogers, the other Rogers, Scalise, Stefanik. He basically has every major Republican establishment person behind him. Morris has people like Bannon, Banks, Moreno, Kirk, Ramaswamy endorsements. And in the fundraising side, Morris has raised about $6 million. Andy Barr $6.5 million. Cameron $1.6 million. And so far, it looks like Cameron is winning, but that's mostly as a result of name ID. Now, the most recent poll was from January 5th, and the spending numbers were from December 31st. So it is not a particularly good look for Morris, but assuming obviously Morris is going to get more endorsements, get more name ID. Barr seems to be more so the sacrificial lamb in this race, considering he's not, yeah, considering he's not really pulling that much. I mean, he's getting 25%, but really, it's at the end of the day, it's probably going to come down to these two, and it really depends on who Trump endorses. in this race, and this will definitely be the one of the top, especially open races to watch out for. So then next we move over to Louisiana. Incumbent Senator Bill Cassidy voted to convict Donald Trump in 2021. Needless to say, that's a very, I mean, you're running in Louisiana, very bad decision, especially if you want to win re-election. And so he is running against both Fleming, Letlow, Miguez, and a couple other smaller candidates. But Letlow has received the endorsement of President Donald J. Trump. Fleming, who is a statewide elected figure, being the treasurer, has received a lot more of the Freedom Caucus endorsements. And of course, Cassie's received all the Rhino endorsements. And so, as it looks now, Letlow is probably going to walk away, or going to advance the runoff with Cassidy. We'll see how this shapes up, but obviously Trump's going to be batting for Letlow. Uh, Objectively, Fleming is the best candidate in this race, but regardless, Cassidy's going to lose this primary. And funding wise, Cassidy has raised, $10 million. Fleming has raised $6 million, but the problem for him is that, he voted to convict Donald Trump, even though he's certainly moved his voting record to be more conservative. That's just not something, especially in a very Trumpian state, that's going to fly by voters. So he'll probably lose. He'll more than likely lose, and it'll be Letlow as the next senator from Louisiana. And lastly, on the Senate front is the state of Texas. So here we have a pretty major three-way primary between Cornyn, Hunt, and Paxton. Cornyn has basically all the establishment behind him. Paxton, who's the state's attorney general, has a lot of the more anti-establishment behind him. Wesley Hunt is also a more anti-establishment pick, but he's kind of like in the middle between the two. Cornyn has raised 10 million. Hunt has raised only 1.3 million. Paxton 5 million. And so far, the primary seems to be mostly a battle between Paxton and Cornyn, with Hunt as more so the sacrificial lamb. Though you are seeing some results where Cornyn gets denied the primary runoff. Now, I think either of these two candidates, Paxton or Hunt, would be pretty good. I know Luke is worried that Paxton will make it close enough that Republicans are going to divert attention away from more important Senate races, gubernatorial races, but Cornyn is just you're just seeing the proof is in the pudding. The fact that an incumbent senator is only getting at most, was it 34, yeah, 38% of the vote in the primary, is just a condemnation of his senatorship. Needless to say, even if he does win re-election, the fact that he's going to be forced into a runoff against a guy who, has scandals, and against a, relatively backbencher Republican congressman, is definitely going to whip him into shape. And so next are the gubernatorial races that we need to watch out for. First one being California. This is more so a funny scenario because Democrats have decided to run basically every single individual in the state for the gubernatorialship. Republicans have while there are a decent amount of Republican candidates, most of the supporters rallied behind Bianco and Hilton. So it's created this relatively unique scenario because California has a blanket primary system where they run every single candidate from every single party in a primary, and the top two advance to the general election. So, as you're seeing in polling, there's a very strong possibility where you get both Republican candidates advancing to the general election. And so, you know, outside of the fact that it'd be kind of funny to see Democrats lose their mind over um, this happening in a year that they were, smug about, D+8 or 9 national environment. Um, yeah, this probably makes it California, especially of all places, one of the top primary races to look into. Because if this happens, you basically get a guaranteed flip in California. And so the next primary race to watch out for is going to be in Arizona. Uh, so there's a three-way primary, though it's mostly between Biggs and Robeson. Both candidates have Trump's endorsement. He did a dual endorsement. Schweikart isn't really pulling that much against either candidate. Biggs will likely walk away with it pretty relatively easily. Um, Outside of the primary, this is probably like one of the top gubernatorial races, especially pickup wise, um, that Republicans have. So making sure that the primary isn't a bloodbath between the three candidates, or really between Biggs and Robeson, is pretty necessary to make sure that we actually have a shot at winning the general election here. But even still, you're seeing it's going to be a very tight race. So, needless to say, how close this is can very well determine um, whether Hobbs walks away with a very narrow margin, or if she even loses. So that will be a top race to look into. And lastly is the state of Maine. Now you might be wondering, what's really happening in Maine? Obviously, the incumbent governor Janet Mills is term limited. She's running for Senate. Republicans don't really have much of a shot at flipping this race. But the interesting thing to note is this candidate here, Jonathan Bush, the nephew of former President George H.W. Bush. And something you may have noticed relatively recently is that the Bush political dynasty is trying to broach its way back into public relevancy. There was I think George P. Bush ran for the Attorney Generalship of Texas in 2022. He lost to Ken Paxton, and now you're seeing Jonathan Bush here running for the gubernatorialship. And he's not even really going to win the primary, but it is an interesting thing to note that you're seeing this political dynasty trying to broach its way back into the mainstream. And I think too, George Bush endorsed Oh no, he did not. But the Bush family is going to try to make a play for relevancy in starting off here in the gubernatorialship in Maine, and potentially future down the line in 28 with the presidential race, or even the Senate races, gubernatorial races, who knows. But that'll definitely be interesting to see just how much sway, just how much power the Bush family has, um, if it even has power and sway anymore. So, anyways, with that being said, those are the top 10 primary races to look into. Some of these are probably going to be a lot more interesting than the others, simply due to them being open races or incumbents, very unpopular incumbents running for re-election against relatively strong challengers against them. So yeah, that's those are the top 10 races, and I will see you all in the next video or live stream we do. Goodbye, everyone.